to some extent there also. And then in Chin Lee, there's only there's two prosecutors there, one handling children's cases and the other one handling adult cases, but for two districts, Chin Lee and Jitlajing. So he's very busy there also. And there is a tendency for backlog to happen there in Chin Lee also. In Delcon, we have one prosecutor there, and she's holding down the fort pretty good. I don't think there's any kind of backlog that we need to talk about there, because I think she's doing a pretty good job moving cases in Delcon. And then you go to Kayenta. Charmaine James is the prosecutor there. She's being promoted from a prosecutor to a senior prosecutor. She will be the supervisor, the official supervisor in that office. There should be three prosecutors there. She's the only one handling the adult and children's cases, and she does have a backup. She does a backlog, that is, of cases that she's working through off hours during her personal time, and so she's doing what she can to alleviate some of those cases. But she does have a wide vision for the community in Kayenta. She's been actively involved in many of the MDT meetings, the multidisciplinary meetings and such with Department of Corrections also, and the police. So you have a good prosecutor there, Delegate Brown. Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Shania. Delegate Brown, do you have a follow-up?
I was listening up for the about what is the percentage like for the individuals who are waiting, who drop the case. Is there specific cases? If you can respond to that, thank you.
Oh, yeah, she has. Shania, do you have a response for Delegate Brown's question?
Yes, I'm sorry about that, Delegate Brown. You did ask that question. I don't have the statistics right here in front of me, but I most certainly can get my hands on them if I've given a little bit of time. But the victims who are involved in specifically family violence cases that we typically see on the Navajo Nation involve females who are the subject of aggravated batteries, aggravated assaults perpetuated by family members, whether it's direct brother or sister or let's say a live-in significant other. There are these cases that do develop in terms of intimidation, particularly those that are male perpetrator to a female victim. There is significant intimidation involved in those cases, where text messages, where phone voicemails, visits to employment sites, locations of victims, following the victim. There is significant. There is that kind of activity involved in those cases. Yes. And of those cases that involve those situations, do the victims eventually dismiss the case or don't want it to be prosecuted? The answer to that is, I would say yes. Not a whole lot of them, though. It would be, I would say, a slim number of those who changed their mind for whatever reason that it may be and submit a written statement that says that they don't want to pursue the matter, or whatever it may be. In many of these cases, it's because it's the perpetrator, the accused, is the supporter of the family, and he's the income of the family, and sometimes that drives it. But there are victim witness advocates who are working with these victims in a way to help broaden their understanding of how they should be handling these situations in their lives, offering services, offering help with protection orders and different things like that. We've got 7 victim witness advocates that are located throughout the Navajo Nation in each one of the prosecutor's office, and each one of them are engaged in interactions with the victims also. Delegate Brown, thank you very much for your question.
Okay, Shania, can you guys excuse number? Delegate Brown Chairs, do you have any follow-up questions? Not hearing any, I'll go back to the floor. Delegate James, do you have a question for Chief Prosecutor Jackson? You're not hearing any questions from the delegates, staff, or those who are on the line. Do you have any questions for Chief Prosecutor Jackson regarding this report?
Madam Chair, this is Louise. I just wanted to bring out to you all on the line, that are on the line. LOC, Madam Chair, Charles Newton is supposed to meet with the chief prosecutors and those that met in Twin Arrows. That was supposed to happen during the week of the I believe it was during the council session, but that did not happen. So another meeting will be scheduled to discuss the Title 17 at a later date. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Shade. Shania, Mr. Jackson, do you have a follow-up for that?
Yes, I do. We do have a meeting today at 4 p.m. with Delegate Newton and I believe other Law and Order Committee members to discuss an update on the Title 17 revisions that I referred to earlier. So that is scheduled for this afternoon. And I believe it's up on the website also. Thank you.
Okay, oh, yeah, thank you, Shania. Shada, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yeah, so there is a meeting at 4 o'clock, and this will be on the update of Title 17, the week-long meeting that took place on October 17th through the 21st, 2022. And the items will be trouble encountered / clarification that needs to be addressed. 2 will be recommendations, and then timeline for completion, and also schedule a full 1-day meeting with prosecutors and those that were involved with the meeting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, yeah, Shada, thank you. So, Chief Prosecutor, I have a few follow-ups. In your discussions on Title 17, so back in 2018 with former Attorney General Ethel Branch, we had made some comprehensive changes, understanding the challenges with our laws not being updated. I realized, we really had to depend on your office to provide the most updated laws. So I want to thank you and your team for being the keepers of our criminal laws here on Navajo Nation. With that in mind, in this discussion of enhancing or a bit more aggressive when it comes to prosecution, what is the conversation surrounding VAWA enhancement? What are the steps that we can take? And I understand when you're just trying to meet your current caseload and the retention and recruitment of prosecutors, what has stalled our enhancement of VAWA to increase the sentencing and to increase jurisdiction over non-native offenders. When do you think that timeline, or what type of investment needs to be taken place so that we can start that conversation to incorporate the enhancement of VAWA? And we did ask for data when it comes to crimes committed by non-native offenders. And at the time, PB did not collect that data, but we'll follow up, and I'll put that as my note. Shada, if you could put that as our note for the committee to follow up with law enforcement if they're collecting data on non-Navajo offenders, because I do have a case out of Nas City area, and the question was, should this non-native offender once they're paroled, should they be allowed to come back to Navajo Nation? And so we're having these conversations, but we're looking at how we can protect our communities. And then when individuals have lost the right to continue to live in our communities and then need to be placed or need to live in communities that have the resources to support them. Chief Prosecutor Sinai, if you could answer that question or give guidance. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Crotty. I will say that enhancing prosecution in terms of enhancing the increasing the sentences and looking at the VAWA implementation conduit for crime on the Navajo Nation certainly has been a topic of discussion in more than one area of my engagement with efforts to improve safety on the Navajo Nation. And I believe that the conceptual understanding is that it's a gradual process of getting there. And I think to try to implement immediately the VAWA provisions, let's say, I think that it's uncertain as to how it is that we're going to receive responses for doing that. In particular, for example, the costs that's going to be associated with the increases that will be allowed under VAWA. And I think that the costs discussion is one we need to get smart about to really know exactly how much how much resources it's going to take to develop these provisions in a way of increased sentencing, et cetera. And everybody sit at the table and acknowledge that these costs are going to be a part of how that we move this discussion forward. A type of a thing that to me it's sort of a progressional approach that we're making to ask that critical question in a way that it will be asked at the best moment in time in terms of a new council, a new idea of who's playing what role, and to sort of help to streamline that paradigm shift. It literally is going to be a paradigm shift from what we have now to a VAWA environment. So that's my response, Honorable Delegate Crotty, concerning discussions. I do want to trail off by just saying that the discussion is on the table. We have been talking about it. I am asking critical questions about it. But as I look at what's going on today, what needs to be sort of fixed now before too much harm sort of ensues is sort of what I'm progressing through to the ultimate point of asking these questions in the right form and at the right time. But to your point, I think it's an excellent vision. I think it's an excellent question to ask as we look at enhancing the ability to prosecute these individuals who commit, these types of serious crimes. That's my response. And I hope that I'm responding to your question, Delegate Crotty.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Shania. Yes, you definitely answered my question. Shadema Spencer, could you, as Law and Order Advisor, could you provide any insight to the committee if the Law and Order Committee has had any discussions or reports on the enhancement of VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the SAT subcommittee and those that are on the call. No, LLC has not received any report on VAWA. Just the one that Madam Chair attended out in Alaska. That was the only one, and plus, I don't think there was a report that was made to the committee by anybody regarding VAWA. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you, Shada. If you could add that to this subcommittee's list follow-up items would be to develop a position statement for Navajo Nation when it comes to the enhancement of VAWA, and we could include that in our discussions with the Diné Action Plan. One of the areas is violence and the intersection with substance abuse, suicidal ideation, and MMDR. So we could continue to have that discussion, and we do have all of the individuals on the Diné Action Plan Advisory Committee. So thank you. Chief Prosecutor Shania, one more question regarding the Office of the Prosecutor when these cases for our missing and murdered Diné families, relatives' families. How is your office involved in those cases? Is it just a reliance on Navajo Nation law enforcement? Because we did have a case, or we do have a case that stems out of St. Michael's, where a young Navajo woman was groomed online, taken while on her way to school, and we were able to recover her in Kansas. But the family were providing advocates to support the family in the trial in Kansas. There's going to be a trial in Oklahoma. There's no response from Navajo Nation. In situations like this, is there a way to recommend cases to be reviewed by your office, or at least have a discussion with our law enforcement, whether that's public, whether that's the officers or criminal investigators, to make sure that Navajo Nation is involved in these cases that require multi-jurisdiction, but the crime was committed on Navajo. If you could give me some guidance in terms of, not so much on this case, but how do we make those referrals to your office so that you can review and move forward with the appropriate response? Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Delegate Crotty. The best way for the Navajo Nation Office of the Prosecutor to receive cases for potential prosecution is through one of the many different law enforcement entities that we work with, where all the facts of the case are documented and put into a report and is submitted to us. We know who the witnesses are going to be, we know what they're going to say, and we know what to turn over in discovery when we have to turn over all our evidence to defense counsel. We know that through, so we know all of that through this process as it comes up through law enforcement. If there are those cases where the Navajo Nation, or excuse me, law enforcement, whether it's state or tribal, if they come upon, if they don't look at a particular case and don't investigate it and don't do, let's say, a report on it, then there is a referral that can be done to us, where we can, from that referral, go back to the police and say, this is a situation, this is an incident that allegedly occurred. We need a report. We need something to substantiate the facts of the matter so that we can move forward with prosecution if the case merits that. So that's the way that I think that we can sort of streamline this answer to your question, and that is how would you refer that type of situation, the latter situation where there is no law enforcement, but there are allegations, there are people who are able to testify, there is clear jurisdiction, both personal and subject matter jurisdiction, whatever that be, under the Children's Code or the Criminal Code. All those pieces are in place. Yes, the Navajo Nation prosecutors can present cases to a Navajo Nation court. So that's the best answer I can give you at this point, Delegate Crotty. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, if you could help us, if there's a specific referral form, or if we could simply do it by memo, we can forward that information to your office. I sit on the New Mexico State Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Relatives Task Force, and we were able to pass a state law that created an office in the state attorney general's office. So that is similar like to our Navajo Nation attorney general. And what we're able to do is to refer cases to the New Mexico attorney general, and their office has received an allocation of funding, like a coordinator to review these cases. Would this be something that you anticipate the individuals who will be reviewing the cases, as you mentioned, as you want to build up your department and your program, or is this an additional unmet need that we can, I'm not sure if you have the information on how that state bill developed and appropriated funding, but since I wanted to see if you're open or what future conversations we can have to support our families, because this young woman was missing, she was sexually assaulted, and luckily she's back home. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Crotty. I'll make this a short answer, but a positive and a proactive answer to your question. And that is if maybe the LOC representative could just send me the information on the bill that you're referring to, the number of the bill, other information that would be helpful for me to get my hands on. We can read it, we can look at it, we can have a close read of the specifics of the bill, and see how we could mirror a similar type of approach as we move forward. So that's how much I'm open to this idea. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much, Delegate Crotty.
Oh yeah, thank you, Shania. Shada, I will send you and the committee that information, and if you could forward that to, well, I'll also include you, Chief Prosecutor, and if you could forward that to any other of your colleagues, my hope is that we could have a conversation and start providing similar services to our Navajo families. Thank you. So at this time, delegates, are there any other questions for Mr. Jackson, Chief Prosecutor? Okay, hearing none, I'll open it to the floor. Staff or individuals who are on the call, are there any questions for our Navajo Nation Chief Prosecutor, Vernon Jackson? Okay, hearing none, I want to thank you, Shania, for your report, and it is on the record. I would want to say, are there any other delegates who have joined the call? We do have caller ending 967, and we do have a call-in user 1. Are there any other delegates on the line to make quorum? Okay, not hearing any.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you can hear you calling.
Hi, I'm the person ending in 8769. Excuse me, I'm Christine Benaliade. I was wondering during this whole legislation changes and amendments specifically to Title 17, if Mr. Jackson, Ashton Nedin,
yes.
Mogoshi, did I think it's a Nahoti, the Nebekai, the Nebekaya Bakai Kewit Enigi. Adi Ladin Hinazdi had no on hit that il call a call. Had either a what in ho, could the Navajo Nation Ajabia, Georgia, and then hit at me. And Lake New Mexico County State Judahata has zogi don't hint either. Okay, Ado cut down the natural aid then don't hit car yet. Oh, backlog had no Ado down the she attended that had ne. What a lay a call in Hisha. It's like we're just held hostage. We should be able to take our cases, be heard somewhere instead of just sitting and then the statute of limitations run. Based on accord or den plug on the nigo kota den neke kita honi benni pe the ho accord based on den no cost no is costing lives. Accord khata hos did being kita as onigi kita gesh accord yaha an here no county or aja hat the house so handi in cases they in the meantime aja has that ohle did Tribal Law and Order Act hat nigo council shut yetadishnish $3,000 maximum fee. No, they shouldn't do that. So be not as late that be had it ada. A coach what no count what the bedin need to that other than the deeds in the deed good kita as any opeta ilni ni kwa if we sta name the old conda kay hen what anxious has aquada chna be yet go up the deja go. This is still the quid she rate la other she ya just of we la a quackage na hashni quite July and dan he has agina done with an AR on what nikit kahonda kay or that hal go quite that he's on hot ashley. We shouldn't have to live like this. Our own yanta had using she should all what it's in hot or that the need is actually you got on has Jonathan Hale the health or is the resolution if yata needs his sneak or yata ja all 5 agencies ado di hat khali do medicine man hol yehi ada that what jahigi sto you chapters of the khati khay what don't know the hal ne to ya shode but the only khata no and that's rare. I mean they're just patting themselves on the back. On khata otlo to ya shode ado nado te what ego what email be hit shido what be yashtiko that shjenal sel kwagi there has been a stoneta President Nez Kait out the lady by home site lisi the nana shahonan and here kwagi ke with any gay what be not ashkat at it adobe landa seat li but the shnigo that she's always complaining nijan ado has not so oi lo be kit that deal with that what agoshin cannot ani in khansi case jo what ela ado what but the initiation what trickles down hat niche then I so opa or lotto open an take at what an ask for it Navajo Nation just the initiate or what and that eat nashiki a quack in hata horse in hita as well. Quack yahadi be his ani be another dot lehi what up it that also. That multi jurisdiction that the neatly. And sovereignty. You're under our jurisdiction. No, I don't do anything. Ask for go what okay, Yaha San Juan County, New Mexico. What the meantime, while you guys get your act together, we should be allowed to take our cases to San Juan. State AG on Hikana, so could you Navajo Nation, and the Justice Department, they say that we don't represent individuals. Put up a website, but cut right on the front page. We don't represent individuals. I need get an attorney got it. I should have hospital. Okay, yeah, actually, yeah, Sani, the Hobbit, Ingo, Hobbit, Iliago, quite a meal based on it, or list. So I see that they got it. Okay, what about this? Did there? Are you what on has? Are the recommendation that say had no call what out had a teacher? Other resolutions that did the council and he just tiny out for look at us and adult say that and he just tiny stock as national there's nana hedo watching holes just actually what now what edge of domestic violence. Nigo task force aliande Genevieve Jackson that's a done at that question na tina that's I need at the open soldiers also a control based on the shit and had nigo. Okay, I had the initial I went to a domestic violence hearing at Azteca court by Alteco. There were 3 Navajo women you're not in our jurisdiction of it only. I did each of those over the bit and a quaggy bit is hot that not akada is cado. The weekend sun died Nishla. Honey the big at the whole door. What a had this see. A shaha quado shaho aigi. Thank you, Madam Chair, Crowdy.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Dr. Christine Benoli. Shania Chief Prosecutor Jackson, I will defer to you in terms of how you want to respond to the questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm going to give you a response in English because that's where I can articulate the best. So I'm going to make that first known to this distinguished doctor who asked these important questions. First of all, I do believe that there is a criminal justice issue concerning victims of crime on the Navajo Nation. You heard me today talk about major crimes, serious crimes, homicides that have occurred on the Navajo Nation that are not being prosecuted by the federal government. You heard me say that we're doing all we can to develop an infrastructure to deal with those cases. That's number one. Number two, this is a systemic problem that does not only affect the office of the prosecutor, but it also affects the Navajo Nation Police Department, the Criminal Investigation Division, and to some extent the court system also. And the intricacies, the embedded issues concerning each one of those areas are not easy. There's no easy answers to it. For example, with the police, you said it already very eloquently, Doctor, that there are questions about jurisdiction, questions about funding, questions about issues related to lack of personnel to deal with issues. That is a very prominent issue with the police department. And I won't speak to them, my partners over there, my good friends over there at the Navajo Nation Police Department. But I will say that there are funding problems, there are resource problems, challenges that they have on their own that need to be figured out also in line with this total blanket coverage of how people in San Juan, New Mexico to Loop, Arizona, all the way to Pueblo Pintado, how each person can have justice and have the justice that they deserve. It's a tall order. I want to lastly say this, and that is that the idea is not necessarily to give jurisdiction to the county or to the state. In my opinion, that's not the answer, because you give away the sovereignty of the Navajo people, how we're able to sustain ourselves and how we're able to progress in the things that we believe and those things that are important to our customs and tradition. We can't be flippant about it. We got to be careful about how we just give these things away. What we should do is focus on those things that we can do. Ed, you said it very eloquently that you've worked through this. You've done resolutions and you've done different things to work it. Well, here we are doing the very same thing. And what we need is supporters who can support an infrastructure that's within the Navajo Nation, where we can sustain and be self-determined. With all due respect, Doctor, I believe you understand this, that self-determination amongst ourselves as Navajo people should be something that we should hold dear and that we should hold somewhat sacred. So we shouldn't give it away. That's the way my opinion is. That's all it is, just my opinion. But the rest of what I'm saying is as is. Thank you very much for your question. Turn it back to you, Delegate Crotty.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Chief Justice. I'm sorry, Sinai Chief Prosecutor, Mr. Jackson, maybe in the future Chief Justice. I appreciate Dr. Benali's concern. We do have her comments on the record. We also have an opportunity here for our staff. If you can add on to any of our committee, we do have a logic model. If we can update that and then add the additional concerns that were raised from the questions and the comments, we continue to have dialogue. And what does that look like? Some of the areas that we're increasing is a community survey that was sent out on behalf of our Navajo advocates, and it was identifying what are the community needs. The survey can be online, and we can redistribute that link for communities to participate, to collect the data. Other areas that we discussed were an annual report on crimes and how that connects with some of the data that we are seeing collectively across Navajo Nation, and looking at then what is going to be the challenge when we have allegations of sexual assault with individuals who are above the age of 12 and under the age of 18. And so, Chief Prosecutor, those are areas that we would also like to see the Title 17 work group address, as those should be clearly defined and updated in our Navajo Nation laws, so that those young survivors of sexual violence receive the type of support and justice that we need in a trauma-informed approach, so that they can recover and that their families can recover. Thank you for the response. So I will go back to the floor. Shada, have any of our delegates joined the line for quorum?
Madam Chair, no. We still have
this is Delegate James.
Yes, she has Delegate James. Do you have a question?
He had just a real quick question. Shimasan, other members of the committee, staff, and then listeners. Kodo bina adishkito liki Di de anahui ai has anje na adik hiti git e dole ako. Ako di hane large shi in hitene. Ano ya yalti o de kwigo shi nal sos. Ya hata hat na lo nal sos bepat na hasita. Ado nana hat egita anile. Nihik ein dani. Aten don hiche na hat neta. Do nate hote dots nate hot ado le hite don li abetini le do aba hatten no hot konzaten hilta hoel jishin ako kodo your turnaround to get information back out quite gishe hit out benal nish le ako quite kid otski lo ibana del kidoli had kodo shina de kidoli shimasan kone thank you.
She has Delegate James. Tonight, Chief Prosecutor Jackson, do you have a response for Delegate James?
Thank you, Delegate James. I think I wrote down your thoughts here. The turnaround of information going out is, I'm thinking that you're referring to the message that I have, I guess, delivered here. Some of the things I've said here, is that what's the turnaround of getting that information out? Just a little bit of clarity with that, Ashwanda. Thank you.
Shania, here's Delegate James. Could you please clarify your question? Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, are there the quick question they are on the out in his join ako ako adoni kodo ya yalti ako kodat ehinal sos the yahanda nil no ya yalti ako ado na kodo not kot out or ni lokot up in deal nesh edon hil nenda John nel the ako even not na del kitten data Mr. Jackson kodidole yeah.
Shania, Chief Prosecutor Jackson, is that clarification clear? Thank you.
Yes, it is very clear. So I think Delegate Brown is correct in saying that when a crime is committed or allegedly committed, it starts a paper process. And the police write a report, and then the police report goes to the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor's office decides if the criminal complaint needs to be filed, and if it's filed, it's put into court, and a criminal summons is issued, and the defendant is served the criminal summons. There is a problem with that, in that the way the situation is now, which we hopefully are going to correct with this Title 17 revision, is that many of these defendants, many of those who are accused of serious, let's say, family violence cases, go into a Department of Correction facility and are released right after 8 hours. They're not held to let's say go to arraignment. They're released. That's a Department of Corrections policy that soon will change. These people leave, and then there's no criminal summons served to them. But then they can't find them. The police can't find them. The police can't locate them. Whatever the problem may be in getting the summons served to them, doesn't live at this address. The address is wrong, or something in that regard. Oh, that does happen. That does occur. In those cases end up getting dismissed after the court has issued 6 or 7 summons to the individual, and the police can't serve them. Is that what's happening on the Navajo Nation? Yes. And it's not only with these types of cases, but it's also cases regarding children's cases, dependency cases, delinquency cases. Same way, difficult having the petition served to the respondent in children's cases, the exact same thing with the criminal summons. Meaning now, that's what results in nobody coming back with a clear discussion about when's this thing going to trial? What happened to this guy? Was he punished? Was there a jail? Was there a fine? Was he released on probation? But then they're not getting anything back because the case was dismissed. That's what happens in many of the cases. And it goes back to resources. How many people, how many officers does the Navajo police have to do this, just serve these papers, versus all the other things that they have to do, and they make those determinations. As of today, it's hit and miss as to how these criminal summons and these children's cases petitions get served by the police. And it can have the effect that there's no return, there's no response, there's no disposition about the case. That's the state of the situation, and we're hoping to change it. Thank you very much. Delegate Brown, thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Shania, Chief Prosecutor Jackson. Chair Delegate James, does that answer your question, or do you have a follow-up?
My son to answer my question. Thank you.
Oh, we appreciate it. Thank you. We will also add that the servers have been on our list in terms of addressing crimes for domestic violence or sexual assault. And we do have Ms. Francis on the line with the courts. And I remember during CARES, they did try to privatize or at least have additional support for those servers. Ms. Francis, at this time, did you want to provide any additional information if you feel that the court can continue to provide or plan to provide those private servers, or what are some recommendations that we should look at? And while you're, I do see Darlene Pino, I do see your hand up. And before I move to you, Darlene, I wanted to ask staff if you can research and provide to the committee on the 22nd council. There was legislation sponsored by Chairman Edmund Yazzie. I believe it was $52 million to develop a Navajo Nation criminal justice fund through using CIHASIN dollars. Unfortunately, that did not receive enough votes, but if we could look at what was imagined and how then this council can use some of our funding to enhance public safety and improve our criminal justice system, if staff could do that. But let's see. Oh, I believe Ms. Francis is off of the line, but we will follow up. Is there anyone from judicial or from the court who can speak to the private servers?
Honorable Delegate Crotty, I am on the line. From what I understand, we currently have out a request for proposals for qualified private process servers. We do have this on our website. We are accepting these proposals to be submitted through December 30th, 2022. So our judicial branch continues to work on recruiting private process servers for the judicial districts. It is ongoing. I can follow up with you after I get an update as well on the status of how many process servers that we do have. I believe we are using some of the funds from ARPA. I would have to double check on that though. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Shadeja. I appreciate that update, and we look forward to future discussions and recommendations So I want to move to Darlene Pino. I do see your hand up. Do you have a question for Chief Prosecutor Jackson?
Yes, I do. Well, actually, it's just sort of mixed comments and
But before you ask your
question.
question, can
Thank
you,
you.
you'll need to identify yourself for the record. This is being recorded, and so we do have our recorder documenting who calls in, and so if you could just give that information. Thank you.
Oh, ako sila. Yate pinadano to the December Honorable M. Crowdy. Didn't you know nahos dito sa nahatli to ato de bayatki. Sashi andan indo bahastindi. Ito panaho ako kunaha istigo kit kolsish. She inchieke Darlene Pino and she do Ashi in Schnedo Chisha Ebashish Chindo Kia Ani the Shichido Turuchini the Shanada. Ado not says on Neville Mountain Adi Hashne Kayatra Instado Adi Hashin Sogoshananish Shadol Adi Nazis on chapter vice president of it. Shilholjish Yisina Shade Alamoni Mexico Adi Ado Ayus. Ado family members Adi. Didi Bayeltigi Title 17. Ado Hojo Ayuse in Instrata Hante. Jo had Oshi Batinadi Kato Lat Osa Lada Sabito Jeto Hado Zoto Hot Oshishi Betholjish. Ako did the nen lingo men was net tailko hatki hiago the beans in Joholago sonachelo or the Wilchineta. Ashish the Neshil the no selling law like but he old dale. To we get old chonlikite Hanne Hansikins. Dog 8 old chonta. Jo PTSD beslat igite. That are not also stide big not so legend or sakagon big at as chont and the dog 8 old chonta. Halahan is still. Aroti ze in the adi bounty out. I don't let the whole data and courts begin that the out there. Dog 8 old chonta. Hanne at Heliago. Hatki Yago. Hana Yago. Hatki hol lagota. Hishi Aise hol ago. Hanne giki side one dotli. Dot on Nilta. A quaggy barconitino. To by to. And how about Honetza? Son in it, Lido or money clini. To call the Mayajatani, long with horses. Ato vice versa, son in law, she thought that hit or little. A court, the title 17 again. Hagila adults a big baka self-defense. Just like the Ahwe, Hati old or show what it's love has argo, then in has arquid. Ahwe akundi, ak is jeho. Tato koto, higher. Ani yaro bini yari to oshati hiniado, dos zila to tishin lado shansenia, or shit hot ada. Self-defense. Ishi had bahunte. That's my question, self-defense. Hala, like I said, did the hanne atilia could do get all small. I don't not all self-defense. So not a tingy law, what not a quacky when seconds had seen did not ye or tiliago. A crash I had over by art here. Saw the bit dust. The title 17. Ako to ay hasil sa ko o sitil agi to bahan negi to they what the 60s 50s 40s was twin lo to kushu was za yelin das dela was za de yilla e balchin na da haslion holjish dis jingot an holjish kade it's lao to awalia kontat igi ko to che aje kita nil o to ida to anneta Joshi aje awalia je aje na socianda nes data ba hunis ba hun tido ke te sling khati nga eta telia hot o ya khasil tsogo be khastido to na ilkite self defense Amber Honorable Crotty, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Ms. Pino, for asking those questions. Chief Prosecutor Shania, Mr. Jackson, do you have a response or some insight on the questions and comments? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the questions, Ms. Darlene Pino. Appreciate it. I'll only make brief comments here because I feel like I don't have enough information at this point to let's say continue on and on about the matter. First of all, self-defense, Navajo Nation Code 216, Section 216 of the Navajo Nation Code does address what's known as affirmative defenses. And one of the affirmative defenses is self-defense, is the responding in a way that you're only defending yourself from getting hurt or others hurt. That is within Title 17. There is a provision for that. So if a case comes up where a person claims that it was self-defense and there was facts to support it, that the person was only defending themselves with a reasonable amount of response, then there is that defense, and that could prevent from a criminal complaint being filed. Secondly, the ideas, the recommendations that we have for revising Title 17, everybody knows it's a Band-Aid approach. It really is, for many different reasons, especially when you have VAWA, the victim's enhancement concerning incarceration, especially when you have that up ahead. Revision of Title 17 seems to be a sort of a Band-Aid approach, but it is an approach that has to be done now in order to correct some of these problems. One of them has to do with restorative justice. Sure, you have restorative justice. Restorative justice means giving people a chance, giving them opportunities to get help, today at 4 o'clock, Dr. Dolores Greyeyes will be given a short summary about what that really means. She's the director of the Department of Corrections, how that Department of Corrections is moving in the direction of being aggressive about getting services for these individuals who are coming into the system in and out, and also for those who allegedly commit crimes who need help for whatever reason that it may be. That's restorative justice. So when we say redoing Title 17, we say it within that context that we want to give people an opportunity to be better, productive citizens in Navajo communities. Thank you very much, Delegate Crotty.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Chief Prosecutor. Mr. Jackson, I'm just looking here online to see if there's any more hands raised. Not seeing any. I want to thank you for providing this update to the committee. We look forward for continuing this discussion, the comprehensive discussion at 4 p.m. and looking at how restorative justice plays into also making sure that the victims and the survivors of crime, their trauma and their experience is also recognized and that they're provided the resources that they need. So I appreciate the time and the energy. And if Shade, Ms. Spencer, if you could send that link out to the committee, we would appreciate it. If there are no other questions from the committee or individuals on the line, we can adjourn or we can end this call, this recording at 12:05 November
Delegate Claudia?
2022, and we can follow up with the call at 4 o'clock.
Delegate Crotty, could I just add something? This is Christine Finale.
Yes, Dr. Benali, you may ask a question. Thank you.
This missing murdered legislation for New Mexico, Shannon Pinto introduced it, and she worked the floor to get this passed. So it's if you go on New Mexico legislative website, it's Senate Bill 12, if you want to look that up. So it was unanimously passed by the Senate, and it went over to the House, and it was introduced by Pamela Herndon there. So that, and it went forward to be signed by the governor. So she did a lot of work on it. She was working the floor. She really worked the floor on that. And I just want to add that you mentioned sovereignty. The government is trying to hijack that. That rests with the people. I just want to say that. Adoti the restorative justice nenigi kushina khida ahande ede health genesis khani banda jit. Dide walia da chna hakhi pesa pasa adole training housing no. Ako kujisha tibet iliaigi oba yosna. Don't need addition. And there's studies about that too. It's up to them to get counseling. There was this guy who did this study, and he went around and visited people who were sexually assaulting children, pedophiles. And he found out that every single one of them said they would do it again when they were released. Maybe not within months, but certainly within years. You know, they'll groom or they'll hook up with some woman with kids, and then they'll assault the kids. Department of Justice was going after those funds. I don't know if they got the money, but if a person is like that, they're going to, in jail, if they're going to tell their counselors, whoever, the warden or whoever, say, oh yeah, I'm rehabilitated, I'm not going to do it again. But when they get out, they will. So, the neck at your go, Latin and Nakotani, and sleepy ye not us, the mother and Jahajon is how she in the ta. Aden that's indeed doesn't the Kade Yahana doesn't la. That was how it's dealt with. Colonial government, the laws the big aho nahadlen that I talked to Herb Yazzie, Tom So, and even that Holgate, who was Chief Justice. We brought this up to them, and he said, you guys need to solve your own problem. Don't be running to Window Rock. Okay, then just give us the badge, you know. جو خد او اجوت ها ولجش كوجو يست النجا اش انا او بايوسنا اني لهنا تار كوجو جو خدش نا ايتا كدب انشيك كواكي كيويت اني ايتا بيلا دا فيدلين لاته نلجه وانا نيت اجسنتا So that's where we need the backing of the Navajo Nation government. Si queda jazito yan na otlahot. Ado edit atil that nini not na hantan to na hantan na ahdetishne. He jen khatat not here ko here. He get that to. Out not this yeah.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Benali, for your opinion. If I could reach out to New Mexico Senator Shannon Pinto if she feels that she needs more additional recognition for her work on the bill. In my experience, she did reach out to the families and the advocates and let us know that the effort in going to Santa Fe, marching and talking and lobbying for the bill certainly supported and provided her the emotional support that she needed. So I will follow up with Senator Pinto if she feels she needs additional recognition. And for your comments in regards to your stand, thank you for your comments, and they're on the record, and you could have follow-up discussions. So thank you, committee members and those who are on the call. We'll be ending this call at 12:11. Today is November 18th, 2022. Colleagues, and you are invited to the missing and murdered Diné relatives healing blanket ceremony. We are preparing at the museum, and so we will have the opportunity to provide additional support to the families and continue to advocate for them. So I appreciate everyone who is on the call. We know this is a heavy subject, and we know it takes a collection and a network starting from the homes and moving into the communities throughout the nation, and collectively we can work on these issues together. So be well, be blessed, and have a wonderful day and weekend. I'll go next.
Thank you.
Thank you.